Hello everybody, welcome to KnockOffRugby. The second test involving the Springboks and the Wallabies has now been finished, and I'm here to give you a review of the game. After a rough start to the Rugby Championship, the Springboks had it all to do. They are the ones that came in with the most pressure, I would say. Wallabies basically got what they wanted, I think, out of the tour. They already had a win under their belts. Anything more than that now was going to be a bonus. They had the freedom, I think, to throw caution to the wind. And I think the Boks did not have that freedom and really came into this game needing a result. And if you watch the game, you could see that from minute one, the Springboks were not taking any chances. They came into this to win, and if it was an ugly win, ugly rugby, that didn't matter. What they needed was the result. The Wallabies, as I said, had a completely different look at this game, I think. A professional side will always say they wanted to win every game. But I think in terms of reality, they would say that 1 out of 2 is good enough for a South African tour. So let's break it down, shall we? I thought the first 20 minutes definitely went... I know there was a chip through by Nick White, which was a great try, by the way. But I think the first 20 minutes went relatively toward the Springboks' favour. They certainly were playing a more tight game. It was quite evident. They went to the high ball a lot and found a lot of success with that. Moody started off really well, took a couple of high balls, won a few balls back, and Cheslin Colby was absolutely out of this world. So I think the first 20 minutes definitely went to the Springboks. The Wallabies, they were a bit clunkier at the breakdown. They certainly weren't as combative as they were in the first game in terms of the first quarter of the game of this test 2. So I think the Springboks definitely came out of the sheds with a point to prove, and they played that way. You know, the funny thing about the Springboks, which I will get into towards the end of the video, is they've got this ability to change up their style, which very few, I think, rugby teams have in the world. One could argue France and I wouldn't say New Zealand, especially after the result, but they went from a really expensive game last week against Australia, which did not work, and they tightened up this week. I know there was rain. There wasn't really rain during the game, but there was rain the entire week prior, and the field was still pretty wet. There was rain just before the game as well. So that contributed to a lot of the handling errors and possibly to a bit of a slower game. You know, I know the Boks did react to the first game and went from overconfidence to perhaps feeling, is underconfidence a saying? I suppose they lacked confidence this week. They really relied on their territory and their pressure game, which I think perhaps it's a good thing, because as Rusty said after the game, sometimes it's just about getting back on the horse and getting that win, securing those points, and that's what they needed. In terms of the next phase of play, I thought the Wallabies started coming back. I could see quite a few telltales in the final 10 minutes of the first half. They didn't get any points in that particular time of the game, but you could see certain aspects. Their physicality really turned up. I thought Valentini really brought his size and go forward to the Australian pack. McWright, you could see he was hunting, but I thought the Springboks really looked after the breakdown a little bit better this week. So he just couldn't get those gaps to get his head over the ball. So I thought that was a pretty big positive from the Boks. The Wallabies also had a positive in their physicality, as I said. And that started popping its head through the latter part of the first half. Now, going into the sheds at half-time, South Africa were definitely the happier side. They were 2 scores up, very similar in terms of the test 1. You know, they definitely went into the halftime the better side, the more side in control, the side that was more in control. The Wallabies had issues. They lost 3 key players. They lost 2 key players during the first half, in Nick White and Tom Wright. And then they lost Suali as they went into first half. He never came back onto the field in the second half. And if you think about the experience and the absolute talent that is, all in the back line as well. No forward, they didn't lose much. They didn't lose anybody in the forward. So, in terms of your counter attack, which they were exceptional at last week, they lost a lot of that ability. So losing a guy like Nick White, your most experienced player on the field, your scrum half, probably your general. I know James O'Connor was there; he's got a bit of experience, but Nick White, I'm sure he would have held a lot of responsibility in terms of how the team was going to play and adjust on the field. So Ali, a generational talent, only a second year in rugby union, and I mean at all levels, and he's already considered one of the best 13s in the world. So Tom Wright, one of the best players on the field in Test 1, he really gave the Boks a lot of problems. So losing 3 players of that quality in the first half was always going to be challenging for the Australians. And I even think that where they were at half time was pretty impressive. I know they were 2 scores down, but as we saw in Test 1, that wasn't out of reach for them. In terms of the Boks, they did what they were going to do. They played tighter, and I think it definitely ticked a lot of boxes for the first half. Then the teams came out, and something strange happened. The Boks found a little bit of domination early in that second half, and then all of a sudden the tides turned. The Australians found a bit of physicality. I thought Valentini was excellent. For his first full game back, I really take my hat off to him. I thought James O'Connor managed the game well. They didn't come out, 2 scores down and decide to just throw end to end and start playing. They tried to play the territory. They tried to meet pressure with pressure. They really got physical and tried to go through the middle, and it was working. The Boks didn't seem to be tackling anyone backwards, so it got pretty worrying, especially in the last 20. The Australians really got aggressive and tightened the breakdowns, and they started stringing tight phases together and multiple phases through the forwards. I think they stayed away a little bit from their backline because of the injuries that they got, and it seemed to be working. We were rushing up on the edges with our defense system, and they were going through the middle, so it was very difficult for us to get back. So I think the Australians, they still have a big up. If I were them, I'd be saying to myself, don't worry about the second test. You got what you needed in South Africa, and you are on the up. And then we have to talk about particular players. For South Africa, we can talk about Handré Pollard first and foremost. He got man of the match, and he was 100% off the tee. He played the territory game, and he played the pressure game perfect. He is built for rugby like that. He's won us World Cups like this. And I think he was deservedly the man of the match. And as I've said previously, our premier fly-off. And I believe he's going to be starting in 2 weeks' time at Eden Park. Then we had Eben Etzebeth, who came off the bench, who I thought was outstanding. He did score a try in the end that really sealed the game for the Springboks. And I just think his punch, he added a lot of punch, which I thought we were lacking in the first half. So I thought he was excellent. I thought our 2 props were very good. Okay, the scrum, if we talk scrum, I thought it was lacking. We didn't get any domination there, which was very worrying because I don't think Australia's got the most powerful scrum in the world. So that's something that I'm quite curious to see how it goes in the upcoming games. But what we did do is in the first half, we used our props, Oxenche and Thomas du Toit, as our battering rams. They were our go forward, and because our back row, I don't think had the ability to really push forward and really get those meters. They weren't very big guys. Kwagga did power through for a try, and he got a few carries, but they more breakdown players. Mostard's more of a breakdown cleaner, a workhorse. So we didn't really have that punch. So we were using our props, and quite effectively. However, I'm not so sure it will work against every team, but for this game, it did work. Interestingly enough, I thought Australia's backline over the 2 tests were actually better than ours, or in better form than we are at the moment. I thought Ikitau and Suali were a far better combination than what we had in both tests, including this one just gone. The back three of Australia were definitely better last week. I would say 2 of our 3 this week, in terms of the Boks back three, were better than Australia's. However, keep in mind that Australia lost Nick White, and he's not in the back three, but he certainly makes a difference. But they lost Tom Wright, which was a big general in their back three. I thought Toole was really good. I thought he had the better of Moody, and that. Just to comment on Toole, I thought he had a great debut. He's extremely pacey. He did a lot on the field. He almost scored a try that really brought them back into the game. I thought Colby was great, and I thought Fussy was good under the hard ball especially. They both won a lot of ball back for us. Moody really lacks on defense. It's a very strange issue. He gets a couple of balls back in terms of air dominance, but that sort of fades away when there's pressure, especially pressure on us, and his defensive reads really are something that is lacking. So that's a problem we'll have to look at. But we do have some other wingers in the barracks, so I think Mapimpi is going to be part of the All Blacks tour, and everyone knows that Mapimpi in a Springboks jersey really brings it. In terms of the Australians, their players that I thought stood out, Valetini, by far. He just has that power through the guts. I rate him a lot. I think he's up there with the best in the world. I actually think that their general pack, they really had a cohesive grunt to them, and the Boks, I think, just maybe lost that toward the end. But yeah, I was really impressed with Valetini. I can't say enough about the guy. In terms of a few pivotal moments when it came to an individual performance, was James O'Connor, and I don't want to rag him too much because I thought he played really well throughout this general tour, but he missed a few off the tee, some very easy ones that could have put a lot of pressure on the Springboks. I think perhaps it might have been I wouldn't say a different result, but it might have been a different last 10 minutes if he slotted that conversion to go a point up. So I think there was a lot of missed opportunities. I also think going back now, the Australians really did say no to a lot of 3-pointers, and considering the weather and what this test match was always going to be, I think that was a mistake. One could argue, though, as I said in the intro, they had very little to lose. They were going to throw the kitchen sink at the game, and I think that's what the Wallabies wanted to do when they were taking penalties and going for the corners. I think they already had their goal, and they didn't want to get into an arm wrestle, so they wanted to get points. They wanted to put pressure in terms of penalties into the corner and staying in that territory. So a few missed opportunities for the Wallabies that I think ultimately cost them. At the end of the game, what I could say is that tactically, South Africa got it right. We returned to structure, a territory-based game. Pollard kicked very well. We used our forwards as well as we could. I don't think we got the go forward, and I don't think we had the physicality that we normally have. But it was, I would say, it wasn't our starting pack. It wasn't our A team, if you will, pack. So I think they did as well as they needed to do. I thought ruck efficiency was much better this week by the Springboks. And they got the job done. This is exactly what Rassie Erasmus would have wanted. He did say, just get back on the horse and then we can evaluate from there. In terms of the Australians, I think this still wasn't a bad result. Yes, they might have wanted to win or at least a bonus point in the end, but I thought they were very competitive and they can take a lot of confidence going forward. Ultimately, the first test went to Australia and the second test went to South Africa. In terms of what this means for both sides going forward, we can start with Australia. I think Australia should still leave South Africa with plenty of confidence. I think they're a much stronger side than everyone gave them credit for. I really do. I expected a bit of a dominant performance from the Boks this week, and it didn't happen. In fact, it could have very easily gone the other way. Big ups for Australia. Tremendous respect. I think Joe Smith did say after the game that he hasn't, since he started the Wallaby job, received as much support and love from the fans. I think fans are really getting behind the side, and they are showing why they should. In terms of the future of their Rugby Championship, I think it's going to be difficult short term. Their first game against Argentina, they're going to be missing a few key players in key positions, and they're going to have to rely on their depth, which I think is their weak point. I do think they're still a strong side, but they're thin in positions, and they need those star players or those experienced players there to finish off games. I am predicting that they go against Argentina 1-1. First game a loss, second game a win. Their stars are going to come back in the second game, or when I say stars, I mean the guys that are injured, and it's going to be a different Australian side. In terms of South Africa, we needed this. It wasn't pretty, but we've got back on the horse. The Boks really needed the win. They really needed to get points on the log to get back into the championship, and just to build some confidence in what they're doing and show the public that they still remember how to win. The interesting thing about the Boks for me is they can play in multiple ways now. It didn't work. Their open, expansive style did not work against Australia last week. And they reverted back to old school South African rugby, and it worked this week. I do think it's a horses for courses type thing, and I don't think the expansive style that we've seen in the past will go away by any means. I do want them to perhaps mesh the two together. You don't need to go full tilt one or the other. Perhaps find a balance. I do think this result still gives the Kiwis something to think about in terms of when we come to Eden Park. I'm predicting the Springboks to go 1-1 in New Zealand, with Eden Park's record being broken. The All Blacks will then hit back in Wellington. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought. Which player impressed you the most? What do you think is going to be happening in the coming rounds of this Rugby Championship? It's getting very interesting. I do know the result of the second game, and what I can tell you is this Rugby Championship is open. Thanks, guys. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. I'll try and reply to all comments. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.